Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stunning Steve Barber. And joining me, as always, is my absolutely awesome co-host, the intellectual rock star himself, delicious Dwaylon Davis.
Hey, everybody.
And we are back after, about a week and a half. And
Mm,
um, once again, these things, unless we tell everybody beforehand, hey, we're having to take the next week off, these are unplanned,
yeah.
and because the last episode we did was the unfortunate passing of Terry Funk.
hmm
And then the very next day was the unfortunate passing of Bray Wyatt.
Bray Wyatt. Yep.
But we were not able to record that night because I think your food truck was
Oh, yeah. We were
doing
booming.
some
Yeah.
they've been doing some serious business.
Yeah.
And then the night after that, we were actually on Finisher Wrestling again.
Yep.
Only this time you were able to join. You actually joined it before I did because I had some delays getting home from my son has saxophone lessons on Friday, and then he and my wife and I went out to eat afterwards. And then we had to go get some crickets for our pet chameleon that we got a few months ago. And that's normally you walk in, you say, I want 2 dozen of your finest medium crickets, and you walk out, pay for me. It costs like, $2.50. You're done.
hmm
But apparently there was somebody in there who was getting a brand new fish tank for their kid at 9 o'clock at night on a Friday. And
Oh, Lord.
they had all sorts of, the way my wife put it, some of the most stupid questions she'd ever heard in her life. And so finally, she came out and I was texting you and I was like, hey, and I was messaging Mike.
hmm
And I was like, hopefully I'll be home soon. And, and of course, that was the night everybody on the way home decided to actually drive the speed limit, sometimes even lower than the speed limit.
You're like, come on.
Come on. And of course, they're right beside each other.
Uh-huh.
One's barely creeping, and sometimes
So
it's the wrong
you can't
one.
pass them. Yeah.
Yeah. If you were in the left lane getting passed by people in the right lane, more than likely you're in the wrong.
hmm
I'm just going to say that left
Yep.
lane is designed for faster drivers.
Left lane is for crime.
But
Right in the
yeah, I
right
mean, there's
lane.
some of us are trying to really break the law.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
don't go
you're
66 and a 65 and try to tell me what a rebel you are.
right. Exactly.
I mean, come on. But I was
Those are
able to finally make it.
that's a rookie number. You got to bump that up.
Got to bump that up. I mean, the cop will even look at you and say, "Look, like you need to go faster. You're blocking
It's like,
traffic."
really? It's like
Yeah,
66. Come on.
yeah. Come on now. Give me some kind of effort.
Yeah.
Um, but since also, um, so many things have gone on in the wrestling world and in our lives, and it's like, wow. So finally, we're able to kind of
Kind of decompress.
try to
It's been
decompress.
whew, it's been something.
Yep. I'll even mention some non-wrestling news for a second because in the past few days we lost Jimmy Buffett.
hmm
We lost Steve Harwell from Smash Mouth. He passed away today.
Yes, he did.
Liver
Yeah,
failure.
I got a notification on Twitter this morning that he was on hospice care for
Yep.
liver failure, and then notification came through this afternoon said he passed.
And I just saw this one as I was getting my notes together. Gary Wright. I don't know if you he had the song Dreamweaver.
hmm
Yeah,
hmm
he passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So maybe not as well known as Steve Harwell and Jimmy Buffett, but I mean Dreamweaver was a huge song when it came
Oh,
out.
yeah. Yeah.
And remember, it was also in the Wayne's World soundtrack, and
hmm
so it's a very well known song. Everybody knew it, but
I mean, when we were in high school, it was still getting
yeah,
played. It was still
you would
getting
still
played a
hear
lot.
it. And so I'm pretty sure he was probably living just off that song alone.
Oh,
So,
I'm sure.
but you know, um, we didn't get a chance to actually talk about Bray Wyatt until now. We did talk about Bray Wyatt on Finisher Wrestling.
hmm
And I actually went back and I listened to that episode again today. Actually, I listened to that particular one because I've never actually did a run-in on the show before. So so I listened
I
to
mean,
it up.
it was perfect though. It's like I think I was answering one of their questions, and then you just started talking. It was like a smooth transition.
Right. And because I think it says something about um Bianca Belair and Montez Ford, him being married
Yes.
to Bianca
Hmm.
Belair.
Yeah.
And so I listened to it up until a couple minutes after that. Then I'm like, okay, I hear my voice way too much. I got to turn this off because I don't like hear my own voice. But I mean, once again, when we had a really good time on their show, if you ever get a chance to listen to the Finisher Wrestling podcast, go check them out. I mean,
Yeah. Please check them out because they're extremely knowledgeable gentlemen. It's
yes,
always a pleasure to talk to them and just give them some support. Check out their podcast.
I mean, great analytical minds. I mean, you listen to the way, I mean,
Hmm.
they do some serious deep dives into whatever they're talking about, whatever the topic is for that particular episode. I mean, they do they do just a fantastic job. So, um, but Bray Wyatt, and I've heard a lot of other shows. I mean, of course, and it's going to be huge news, and they're talking about Bray Wyatt, um, and I think for him to die of a heart attack at 36 years old,
Hmm.
you know, because he had a already existing heart condition, and then he caught COVID. And if you've ever had COVID, I mean, one of the things it does
Hmm.
affect is your heart.
Yeah.
And all they, all WWE and him, the only press release they'd ever said was he had a medical condition that is pretty
Hmm.
serious. It was keeping him from wrestling. They never said what, and then that was probably at his request. I don't want people to,
Yeah.
but you can say I have a medical condition, but and of course that led to speculation and rumors, and unfortunately, I mean, we all kind of it would put it in the back of your head. Well, what about this or this? And I think BC Hunter on his latest episode of Wrestling with the Truth, he actually was talking about that the wrestling so-called journalists, all the things that
Yeah.
they were saying about him. Yeah,
Yeah.
and BC is not too fond of the dirt sheets, basically. And he even said Meltzer. He said Meltzer actually gets his information from the inside, so his aren't really just
Yeah.
dirt sheets. But he said, but a lot of these other ones are. They spread
Yeah.
rumors, and I'm
Yep.
glad. BC is like us. He's not in the business of spreading rumors.
Right.
So and just like, I mean, when we hear news, we're like, when and people realize Dwaylon and I, we actually talk amongst ourselves before we even
Hmm.
hit record to decide whether or not we're going to talk about certain things.
Yeah, because certain stuff is just, especially in any of y'all that follow any type of wrestling on Twitter, there's only a select. Like I follow WrestleZone, Cultaholic. Um, as far as news goes, that's pretty much it because those I know they do their due diligence as far as research and stuff goes before they put anything out. But a lot of these other ones are just it's just clickbait. They just put
Yep.
anything out just to get views. And it's like, why would you make up stuff about somebody's medical condition just to get views on your Twitter page?
People do it. I mean, that's
Hmm.
the sad thing. And eventually, that's I always call that, if the foundation of your success is hollow,
Yeah.
that's the way I look at it. I mean,
Hmm.
it's all based on something that's fake. And
Yeah,
so,
because
yeah,
and it's like, the real information always comes out and then, you know, these dirt sheets look stupid because it's like, well, they've been saying this for months and then here's what actually happened. So it's like, but people still keep going back to these dirt sheets.
yep.
And I don't understand it. Even when they get caught in lies, people still gravitate toward them. I think it's just the sensationalism is
I
a
would
lot of
say,
it.
yeah, because I mean, I'll compare it to like the Hollywood gossip sites,
Hmm.
you
National
know,
Enquirer.
National Enquirer. And the sad thing about it is, my mom used to get National Enquirer and Weekly World News a long time ago. Those are the main two I remember. I mean, there's other ones, of
Yep.
course. And you see all the headlines in the front. And then inside, the really sad thing is they would actually have real news stories,
Hmm.
but that's not what they advertise on.
No, that's not what they advertise. And then people would buy it thinking, oh, look at these amazing stories they've got. And then it's just a run of the mill news story. And it's like, how have they not gotten in trouble for false advertisement? I don't get it.
I mean, I've heard that they've been sued before, but I don't know for sure. It wouldn't surprise me,
I mean,
you
they're
know.
still
So,
around, so apparently it didn't
yep.
do a whole lot.
Uh,
So,
but yeah, Bray Wyatt's passing to me because we had even talked about that. When he one of the best returns I have ever seen.
oh yeah, when he returned at Extreme Rules, oh yeah,
Yes,
yeah, that was amazing. I mean, the just how they did it with the door and just he comes out, the lantern, the just the atmosphere, the crowd response, everything. It's just it sucks for him that they never put the machine behind him like they should have. I
exactly.
mean, one of the best minds, creative minds that we've ever seen in pro wrestling. And a lot of that was just Vince McMahon didn't get it. So Vince McMahon's not going to push something that he doesn't create and that he doesn't understand. And
Yeah.
he didn't get Bray Wyatt. I think if Triple H had been in charge back then when Bray Wyatt was first coming through
Oh, he'd have been pushed to
main
the moon.
roster, oh yeah, he'd have been champion and he wouldn't have got that month-long reign and drop it to Orton at WrestleMania. Yeah, I think he would have had at least a good 6 month reign with the title. I mean, he was the Universal Champion twice, the WWE Champion once, and though the three reigns combined didn't last a year.
Yeah, jobbed it out to Goldberg.
Yeah, jobbed it out
Why?
to Goldberg,
Uh,
and then lost it in the triple threat to Roman.
yep. And if if you want to see a promo that even now, just watching it, makes my hair stand up in my arms, is the one when the Bray Wyatt character was very, very new, and
In
yeah,
NXT.
in NXT,
Yes, I
and
mean he didn't even have the big beard yet. He
no,
barely
he
had any
had a
facial hair.
beard, but
Yeah, but
but
it was real thin, and it's
and when he's sitting in that rocking chair and some of the things he's saying, I'm like, man, that was what 10 years ago that he did that,
mm-hmm.
and it's
I know.
still, I mean, that particular the way he did that will hold up, against
Yeah,
anything.
Bray Wyatt to me is on that level. He was on that level with the Jake Roberts. He
Yes,
didn't have to yell. He didn't have to scream and holler. He just commanded your attention whenever he spoke.
yeah. I mean, honestly, I can't think of anything any better way to put that because he embraced that character, and I'm pretty sure he helped come up with it. And then people said, well, what did Dan Spivey think about it? Well, he actually got some of his advice from Dan Spivey. Dan Spivey actually
Mm-hmm.
gave him the green light, literally. I
Yeah,
mean, because,
yeah,
Spivey was friends with Mike Rotunda, Bray
yeah,
Wyatt's, Wyndham Rotunda's dad.
yeah.
And, there's a mixture of Kevin Sullivan. And I'm so glad I've heard other people say the same thing. And I know they didn't hear
Mm-hmm.
me say it. So I'm glad other people could actually see the comparisons between them.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of that mixture because between Waylon Mercy, who was Dan Spivey's character,
Mm-hmm.
and then Kevin Sullivan with
Yep.
the Army of Darkness,
Mm-hmm.
and Bray Wyatt, he was somewhere in between there, and Waylon Mercy didn't have like a flock behind him,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Kevin Sullivan obviously did, and
Yeah.
Sullivan was also friends with Mike Rotunda, and
Yep.
so yeah, but Bray Wyatt, I mean, that shows, I mean, how much of a student of the game that he was.
Oh yeah. And like the video package for his match with John Cena at WrestleMania, they used Eminem's song Legacy. And just listening to Bray Wyatt talk through that video package is just breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
He could just, it's hard to describe. He just knew how to pull you in, and he could tell a story without, like I said, without ever raising his voice. And, because a lot of wrestlers have to scream and yell and everything to get their point across. And Bray wasn't like that. Bray, and that made what he said that much more sinister because he wasn't screaming at you. He was just flat out telling you, this is how things really are. I'm telling you what they don't want you to know.
Exactly. And the way some of the way he used words, and that first promo,
Mm-hmm.
where they're like in that old house, and
Yeah.
you know, when he's being brought in by, I want to call him Brody Lee, um,
Luke
Luke
Harper.
Harper. When Luke Harper's bringing him in, he says, "Follow me," and you
Mm-hmm.
see Eric Rowan. He's over there. He's chopping wood and and
Yeah.
just looking like this big hulking beast, like a lumberjack of a dude.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, yeah, you don't want to mess with these two,
Yeah.
And then he says, "I told you not to go in there," and but you see Bray Wyatt, and he's sitting in that rocking chair,
Mm-hmm.
and then he starts talking, and you're like, okay, if you didn't know that they're supposed to be a cult leader, you before, you would definitely know now.
Yeah.
And there was no, like you said, I mean, he didn't scream to get the message across.
Mm-mm.
It was the words. I mean, he would raise and lower the volume as needed.
Yeah.
And the comparison that I'll actually kind of make it to, and I know we usually don't talk about religion on the show, but there's certain types of churches where the preacher, I mean, they yell and they scream a lot. And then
Fire and
there's
brimstone. Fire and
it's
brimstone is
oh,
what I
it's fire
always
and
call it.
brimstone. Yeah, I mean, this is like, I'm not going to say what kind because I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to hurt anybody's feelings who might be listening. But I mean, there's some, I mean, they scream, scream, scream,
Mm-hmm.
and I've often said, I mean, but the reason I don't go to the particular church, I said the message gets lost in the volume.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas like church I go to now, it's very, very, very rare that you'll hear our head minister scream or yell. He's very, very, I mean, but you listen to everything that he's saying. And that's the same way with like a Bray Wyatt. He would get his
Mm-hmm.
promos, he would say them very quiet. Jake Roberts said them quietly.
Yep.
And you were just hooked. And by the way, you were also scared.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Like Jake Roberts could look into the camera, give a promo, and then look and just kind of smirk and say, "Trust me," and you were like, "This guy's going to kill me."
he's gonna kill me. I'm worried that I'm gonna have a nightmare with him in it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
But you know where Bray got the idea, got the rocking chair idea?
I actually read this. I don't remember.
It was Mick Foley.
Oh, that's right.
Mick
Yep.
Foley cut a promo in ECW and he was sitting in a rocking chair when he cut the promo. So when Wyndham was coming up with the Bray Wyatt character, that's something he wanted to use. So he asked Mick Foley if it was okay if he, you know, used the rocking chair as part of the gimmick. And of course, Mick Foley being Mick Foley was like,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, you know, because
Yep.
Mick Foley is one of the most unselfish wrestlers you'll ever see. So,
Yeah, considering how I mean he really gave his body to the sport.
mm-hmm. Yep,
But yeah, Bray Wyatt definitely one of a kind. He's going to be missed by the
absolutely.
entire wrestling world.
Yeah,
So we'll just say rest in peace,
yeah.
and it's going to take a
God bless
while.
his family. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's going to take a long time to get over this one.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to other kind of news that happened. There's been all sorts of wrestling pay-per-views, premium live events that have been going on since the last time we actually had a show.
And I have not had a chance to watch any of them in full. It's
Oh,
been so much wrestling lately that, and I've been so busy with things that it's like um, I started Payback yesterday. I think I got to the opening match and then something came up and I had to go take care of it. I never got back to it.
oh,
I haven't had a chance to watch All In, but I've heard it was amazing. Largest paid wrestling crowd in the history of pro wrestling.
yep.
Um, from what I understand, a lot of people were not happy that Chris Jericho was having a premium match with Will Ospreay until they saw the match, and Chris Jericho turned back the clock and kept up with Will Ospreay, and that's saying a lot to keep up with Will Ospreay.
I have not watched either of the AEW pay-per-views yet. Unfortunately,
I've heard they were both excellent.
I've heard that too. I heard that the you had All In England and you had All Out in Chicago.
Yep.
And the All In England, one thing I got to say, it was actually kind of cool that Chris Jericho sang his entrance music as he was going to the ring.
Yep. And Saraya, formerly known as Paige, wins the women's world title.
About an hour and a half away from her hometown of Norwich.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
By the way, when you see it spelled Norwich, it is not Norwich, it is Norwich. I know this because I got corrected when I lived there. So, I was told it's pronounced like it's porridge. I was like, oh, okay.
A lot of people I saw on Twitter, of course, you got to kind of ignore a lot of that, but a lot of people were not happy about Saraya winning the women's world title. They're like, it was a foregone conclusion. They had it in London and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and the problem with that is what? This is a woman who was told 7 years ago that she would not be able to ever wrestle again. And for her to be able to come back and win a world title is, to me, it's beautiful. So it's like, you give her props.
Did they have an issue with the Bulldog winning the Intercontinental title in this very same stadium?
Nope. Nobody said boo about that, but it's like,
and he was on crack.
Yeah, he was cracked out the whole time.
The whole time.
Literally could not remember any part of the match, and Brett carried him all the way.
Oh, but maybe they just don't like Saraya. I think she's great.
I think it's still a lot of these toxic dudes that just don't appreciate women's wrestling, and they want to pick it apart instead of appreciating the fact that these ladies are just as good, if not better, than a lot of the guys that are on the roster.
She has a movie about her.
Mm-hmm.
If you have not seen Wrestling with My Family, go check it out.
Check it out.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a movie about her. I mean, they don't show when she first started wrestling when she was 13.
Yeah.
But she's a second generation. Both her dad and her mom are wrestlers,
mm-hmm.
and at least one of her brothers is a wrestler. I think maybe both of them.
Her mom was her first opponent.
Yeah, because somebody didn't show up. So
yep,
like, come on, and just see it. I mean, they were definitely not affluent. Her dad owned the company where they were at, but they were definitely not affluent. I mean, she had kind of a rough upbringing. I mean, very loving family, but I mean, they some of them couldn't stay out of trouble, including her dad.
Right.
And but I mean, obviously, they got past that. I mean, and now look at her, what she's doing now.
Yep.
So but yeah, if you haven't watched all the Payback yet, definitely go watch it. Excellent event. Because I could tell you, in fact, that first match, Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus in the cage.
Guys, I saw that, and I saw on Twitter. I didn't catch it when I watched the entrance, but Trish came out. Some fan was like, "You're going to lose, Trish."
Oh, I did see. I know what you're talking about.
And Trish walks over to the fan and tells him politely to,
Yep.
And it was like, bravo.
Yep.
Bravo.
Yep.
Play the heel to the end. Bravo.
Yep. Even though I'm still not a fan of heel Trish Stratus, just because she was a face for so long, retired, and then I'm also not a fan when somebody's retired, like in the Hall of Fame, and then all of a sudden they said, all right, I'm kind of bored, I'm gonna go back for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back.
But I mean, she's still that match. I mean, if you haven't watched it, I mean, she and Becky Lynch, they raised the bar for everybody else to follow.
Yeah, I definitely got to try to watch the rest of it because from everything I saw, it looks like an excellent show.
Oh, it was. And see now I'm now I can't spoil anything unless you don't mind spoilers, but
Oh, I don't mind spoilers. I'll still go back and watch it.
I mean, do you already know the results of everything?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now I will say this, and of course, John Cena was the special referee for The Miz and LA Knight.
Okay.
And Cena came out. Of course, he's also the host, for the show, and he's out there doing his Cena thing because Cena is one of the best promos in the business. And
oh yeah,
he knows how to get the crowd going, hyped, and Miz came out, and Miz is a good promo too.
Yeah.
And some of the things he said, first of all, John, when they asked you to play the part of whatever it was, the Barbie movie, you should have told them no. And then he told John later on, he said, you're in your 40s, but you dress like a Teletubby. So he's hitting on him, I mean, like hard, and John's like, um, but that match, I mean, was good. Mysterio and Austin Theory. I mean, all the matches honestly were good. Mysterio and Austin Theory, that one, because it didn't go beyond, I guess, what we would have expected.
Yeah.
And that one, I mean, hopefully they'll kind of stop that feud anyway.
Yeah.
Because Mysterio and Santos Escobar really need to get their program going.
Oh yeah.
But I
because
also
it's coming.
Yeah, I mean,
Santos is going to turn on Ray, and then that's going to be the feud, and that's going to be fantastic.
Yep, and of course Dominic's going to interfere and help somebody beat his dad, or
oh yeah, as he should.
Yeah, I mean that is the way wrestling works, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I just hope they do find something for Austin Theory because he is too good of a talent to let languish in the mid card.
Yep.
Judgment Day and Owens and Zayn. That match was just crazy.
I saw the clip of Rhea Ripley spearing Kevin Owens to the barricade.
Yeah. Did you also see him doing the swanton off the thing? Wearing at one point, all of a sudden they ducked down. They popped up wearing the Penguins jerseys.
Yeah.
And Kevin Owens, I don't know when he got hard way. I'm assuming he went hard way and didn't blade, but when he came with blood all over his face, and yeah, but I mean that match was just nuts from the bell. Now, here's one of the things that I have an issue with, like not just this match, but really all of wrestling. When you have like that bad guy faction, and they're in a match like this where it's just interference after interference after interference, and then they had, I can't remember the dude's name, but he's one of Ben Balor's running buddies, and they said his name. I mean, and
yeah,
you know what? Maybe they mentioned
JD
McDonough. Donahue.
Yeah.
He jumped in there too. So now there's 5-on-2. Who's going to come down and run interference for Owen and Zayn? That's that used to be a thing when you'd have somebody coming in. All of a sudden you'd see the other ones, the faces come out to kind of deflect that off. They didn't have that. So that's one issue. I mean, and it's not. I mean, it's just the way that's written, and I'm like, what, you're letting Judgment Day take the titles, so, which means that what's going to happen with the briefcase?
Somebody had a theory that I could kind of see happening because the bloodline stuff's far from over. Jey Uso's feud with Roman is far from over. Somebody's theory is that Jey Uso wins the world heavyweight title at some point before Survivor Series.
You sent that to me. I did see that.
Yeah. Yep. And then he fights Roman, when they have the brand warfare crap and the world champion versus world champion. He fights Roman there. Then something happens and Damian Priest cashes in. Like say Roman beats him, then him and Solo beat up on Jay, and then Damian Priest cashes in. Damian Priest will cash in sooner or later because they're pretty intent on breaking him away from Judgment Day because he's going to be. I think they're wanting him to be the next one of their next big baby faces.
Well, I mean, he's legit.
Yeah,
Yeah. I like Damian Priest. I mean, if you ever see
yeah.
the first one, so I'm like, okay, big man who can move
Mm-hmm.
and he can
He's
talk.
getting his promos are getting better. Yeah, he's got that presence about
Mm-hmm.
him. I've watched him since he was Ring of Honor World Television Champion. Then he was going by Punishment Martinez, and I've watched him since then. The first time I saw him in Ring of Honor, I was like, "Ooh, this guy's impressive,"
Yeah.
and he's just gotten better and better. I could see him. I could see them putting JD in his spot in the Judgment Day once they break him away, because JD
Yeah.
is too good for them not to use.
Right.
You know, at all.
So,
He's too talented for them not to use.
and they got to do something. I mean, it's like right now, it's like, okay, what are you guys doing? I mean, it's like you're kind of in a holding pattern. Okay, now you have the tag titles, but okay,
It's
now
like
what do you know? And
right now you're the horseman, but one of the horsemen has a guaranteed shot at the world title
yep.
that one of the other ones wants. So, Finn still wants the world title. Damian Priest has got a guaranteed title match in that briefcase. So there's still tension there, even though they're the tag team champions.
Well, Rhea, I mean, she successfully defended her title.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of help from Dominic, but honestly, I mean, yeah, he interfered, but he was taken care of pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So it was almost still a clean win. Um, and Seth Rollins and Shinsuke, that match got pretty brutal. And I guess Seth Rollins does have legitimate back problems, so some of the moves he was taking,
yeah. From what I understand, what he said it in an interview on Raw, it was legit. He's got um, lower lumbar fractures.
and well, don't be surprised if you see him drop the title soon, so he can actually recuperate
Uh
some.
huh. Yep.
Because you
Yeah,
know
because
yourself,
he's.
back injuries are nothing to mess around with.
I have two lower lumbar fractures right now that I don't know how it happened, but um, so yeah, yeah. I could see him dropping the title. Um, I think they should give it to Shinsuke. Let Shinsuke have a good run because their feud's not over.
Right.
I think Seth has done a lot to make that title mean something. But if he's as hurt as he is, he needs to take some time so he can heal. And before he makes it worse, let Shinsuke have a run with the world title, which he should have had years ago.
Yes. When he won the Royal
And
Rumble, yes.
exactly when he won the Royal Rumble, he should have beat AJ at WrestleMania for the title. But they booked it dumb and whatever. But I think they should have Shinsuke beat him and then have a decent run with the title. Heel Shinsuke is fantastic. Um, and then Damian Priest could get booted out of the Judgment Day by then, be the face and cash in, or he could still be a heel and cash in. It don't matter.
And from what I had heard this, I don't know how true it is, but I don't know why anybody would make it up. After the cameras stopped rolling at the event, apparently Shinsuke attacked Seth Rollins again after
Yeah,
it was all
yeah. I saw
over.
the clip.
So
I saw the clip on TikTok.
okay,
Yeah,
so somebody actually
yeah,
had. Yeah, I kind
yeah.
of figured they did.
Yeah, somebody had footage like in the arena. Yeah, he jumped him after after it was over. Yeah, he attacked him again. So that feud's far from over.
Well, good. So I mean, I want to see Shinsuke win it, because, like you said, he deserved it a couple years ago at WrestleMania after he won
hmm
the Royal Rumble. So now finally Shinsuke is getting, his due. And
Yeah.
they said it was the first time that he actually was in the last match at any pay-per-view since he moved up to the main roster.
Yeah,
I'm like,
he's never main evented a
that's
pay-per-view
ridiculous.
ever on the main roster. I mean, he main evented several takeovers, but
Right. But oh yeah, and I think BC he also mentioned that on his last episode about I think he had mentioned the same thing. Um, but the elephant in the room, the biggest wrestling news that happened over the past week. Once again, CM Punk is in the news, and it was in the news all weekend. Said he got into a fight with Jack Perry, Jungle Boy Jack Perry, and then it was said, that he almost got into it with Miro. It's been said he almost got into it with Jeff Hardy, and all Jeff Hardy did was ask him where the bathroom was. And now that part may be rumors. It was just kind of a funny story. And then he lunged at Tony Khan, and Samoa Joe had actually had to step in between them, and he was saying, "I quit, I quit." But what we do know is true because there's been several stories. CM Punk has been terminated from AEW. He is no longer with the company. I say about time. Yep.
Yep. I agree.
Yep. Because we don't know all the facts, every single detail, but what has been confirmed is yes, him and Jack Perry did get into it about something. Now some of that's he said, she said. Well,
they've actually got a credible witness to the whole thing. That's not, it's not management. It's not a wrestler. So, but from what was said, okay, for anybody who doesn't know, on the 0 hour, which is like the pre-show for All In, Jack Perry had a match against Hook. They were going to do a spot on top of a car. Punk and Perry had already gotten to it about Collision, the Collision show, because Perry wanted to use real glass in a spot. Punk was adamant about no and all this. And so they ended up doing the spot. Perry and Hook did. And Jack Perry looks into the camera and says, "Real glass, cry me a river." That's all was said. They do the spot, all this. They go in the back. As soon as Punk gets done with his match against, actually, I think it happened before. Did it happen before? No, it happened after his match with Joe. He goes to the back, gets in Jungle Boy's face, about what he said, and then shoved him. Jungle Boy came back. Punk tried to put him in a choke. All this. Tony Khan's physically trying to break this up. Punk's lunging at Tony Khan, knocking monitors over. Tony Khan almost got hit by a couple of monitors. And Tony Khan has even said in his statement that he had never feared for his safety at a wrestling event until that night. And he's like, I didn't really have any choice but to let him go. And people are like, well, Jack Perry instigated it by saying that line. And it's like something that John Moxley said last year when he was feuding with Punk. He said, and really enjoy this time that CM Punk is here, because he's not going to be here much longer. He's like fragile ego, fragile mind, fragile body.
Yep.
And that's it. It's a fragile ego. It's like, but here's the thing. Punk can go off script and cut promos about Hangman Page, and that's okay because Punk was doing it. But somebody says a line back towards him and he can't take it. That's
right.
Part of wrestling, is the give and take. You kind of poke the bear a little bit. It's what's called, that's what makes the story good. And but Punk was just a cancer. He was a cancer after Punk's AEW run was good until they put the world title on him. Once they put the world title on him, I feel like he thought, oh, well, I've walked in here and 6 months after I debuted, I'm already the world champion. And so I'm automatically better than all these other guys who have worked their butts off, their entire career to get to this point. And he just thought he was better than everybody else. The gimmick that MJF has is what CM Punk really thinks, is that MJF's character thinks he's better than everybody else. CM Punk honestly thinks he's better than everybody else.
And he thinks the world revolves around CM Punk. And, Triple H, and it may have been a promo, but I have a feeling that he was actually speaking truth when he told CM Punk that he said, the difference between me and you is I tell everybody,
I'm going to step on you or go through you, to get to the top.
Yep. He said,
like,
you always try to play the martyr. You always try to play the victim.
And he also said, he's like, you want to be the catalyst for change as long as you're on top.
Yep.
If you're not on top, then you don't care about the change because you're not the focal point. And that's it. As long as he's the focal point. I mean, Tony Khan built the Collision show around CM Punk. That's how fragile his ego is that he had to have the whole show. He had to have his own show to where he didn't have to interact with the elite, or he didn't have to interact with Hangman Page or anybody else that he just didn't like. And it's like, I used to be a CM Punk fan, but honestly, I hope he's just stays away from wrestling, because at this point, it's like he can't keep up. His body won't hold up. His ego's way out of control. He's one of those, he thinks he's bigger than the business, and he's just not. He also like a lot of people are trying to defend him and be like, he shouldn't have got fired. He was the biggest name that they had, and he was the biggest merchandise mover. And it's like, you do realize that in the grand scheme of things, Chris Jericho is a bigger star than CM Punk ever was or will be. I mean, and CM Punk has been the same. I was telling my wife this yesterday. We were talking about CM Punk. I said, here's the thing, the difference between CM Punk and Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has reinvented himself since he started wrestling. There's been multiple types of Chris Jericho. CM Punk has been the same guy since he was doing backyard wrestling. The same guy now is the same guy then. The ego just got bigger. He has not reinvented himself. It's been the same. The problem is, it's kind of like Bret Hart. Best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. And Bret started to believe his own gimmick.
Yep.
Punk thinks because he's straight edge that makes him better than everybody else. I mean, I'm straight edge, but I don't think I'm better than anybody else. That is a choice that I make to stay sober. But
same here, because I mean, well, we have our own reasons why we are sober now.
Yeah.
Because there was once upon a time where we weren't.
We were not. No. Yeah. But Punk thinks that because he lives a straight edge lifestyle, which is great. I applaud him for that. But it doesn't make you a martyr for the cause. And it doesn't mean you get to look down on everybody else who doesn't live the same lifestyle that you do.
And, with CM Punk, it kind of reminds me when Raven, Scott Levy, when he was Raven in WCW during, the Monday Night Wars, and he'd have his flock, he'd get in there. What about me? What about
Raven? Yeah.
That's what Punk's doing for real.
Yeah.
And everything, like you said, has to revolve around him. He left WWE back in 2014 because he got mad about, the Rumble. Something happened, and I guess he was not supposed to be tossed out when he was, but all of a sudden he was forced out of it. And he disagreed with something, so he no-showed the next night and then just walked.
Yeah.
I'll show you. Well, WWE got bigger without him.
It's like, it's the behavior of a 5-year-old. I
Yes.
have a 5-year-old. She don't behave that way. It's like it's childish. It's like, oh, I'll show you. I just won't show up for work, and you got fired.
And you got
I'll
fired.
show you. I'll just get in the backstage fights with other wrestlers, and you got fired.
And you got fired again.
And people don't seem to realize the the common denominator to all these issues backstage in AEW was CM Punk. They didn't have those issues before he got there. You didn't hear about fights. There was no brawl in, and there was nothing with Jack Perry and all this stuff. CM Punk's the catalyst for all this because Tony Khan gave him way too much leeway.
Yep.
Because of name recognition, because of CM Punk's name value. He gave him way too much. I mean, the leash was real, real long, and it's one of those. He's like our kids. You give them an inch, they take them out.
I mean, at a press conference for AEW,
Yeah.
he slammed the company, slammed the executives,
Uh-huh.
slamming Tony Khan, who's sitting, 6 feet
Right
away from
next
him.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Tony
And
Khan's like,
he's
not,
saying this to media outlets, and it's like you're embarrassing the company. And I mean, that was a big show. That was an
mm-hmm.
excellent show, but it all got over. Nobody remembers anything about that show except Punk at the media scrum and the fight with the Elite afterwards.
Punk showing his rear end
Yeah,
again. That's a nice way of putting it. You know what I'm trying to say, but yeah.
Oh yeah, Punk's backstage stuff partially overshadowed the biggest night in pro wrestling history. AEW accomplished something that WWE could not accomplish. They got 83,000 paid people in Wembley Stadium.
And if anybody's wondering, well, wait a minute, WWE WrestleMania 3 had 93,000, then WrestleMania, whatever, which one it was in Dallas, had over 100,000. Okay, the difference is 83,000 paid.
Paid. A lot of those seats that WWE has for those inflated amounts are giveaways.
Giveaways.
It's a lot.
And they include like the people working in part of the total.
Exactly. They include the employees in that total. So it's like they're talking about, oh, there was 100,000 people in the building. Yeah, but all of them weren't paid. They weren't paid fans. 83,000 paid fans came to Wembley Stadium. I heard it was one of the best shows you'll ever see. But leave it to CM Punk. It's like, oh, I got to make sure it's all about me. But this time it backfired and he got fired.
Well, when you sent me that text, and had the thing showing, hey, CM Punk has been released from AEW officially. I was actually at my birthday party, which, by the way, that was actually something else that happened since the last time we recorded. Is I celebrated my 50th trip around the sun.
He joined the club.
I joined the club. I am now half a century old. But we actually had a get together. Don't want to call it a birthday party because it was at the fellowship hall at my church.
Right.
But I mean, we had people there, and one of those people who was there was Tiny Tim Hall, the wrestler. He was there with his two daughters. His wife and his son couldn't make it. His wife, she had to work, and his son, it was out just absolutely killing it at cross country meets because, oh my God, the boy can run. Tim told me, he said he's had 3 cross country meets this year. He got second place in one of them, and he got first place in the other 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, the kid's a phenomenal runner. But Tim was there, and I actually showed him, the headline, and he said he's going to go to WWE. I said, no.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, here's the thing. They would use CM Punk just to poke the bear with AEW. They'd be like, oh, you fired this guy. We're going to bring him in. We're going to make him hot for about 6 months, and then just enough to where we think you're going to feel bad about letting him go. And then we're going to be like, oh, well, all right, we're done with you now. We just want to get back at your old company.
And, with and like you said, what Tim pointed out, he said they've always taken everybody back.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, they always run back. And then I was going to think about it. CM Punk has made an appearance, sort of, with WWE. It was not on a show. It was
Oh,
their
yeah,
podcast or
yeah,
something.
yeah. It was when they had that show on Fox Sports,
Yes.
and he was on there.
So there is some kind of relationship there. However, Vince isn't running the show now, more or less. Triple H is the one who's kind of calling a lot of those shots.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also the talent may actually, the people who are there right now, maybe stand up and going, we don't want him here.
Seth Rollins said earlier this year, he's like, stay away. He's like, they're like, you don't want to work with CM Punk? He's like, absolutely not. He's like, the guy's a jerk. Um, he's like, I don't want any part of that.
Right. And
And Triple H is not a CM Punk fan anyway.
no, he's
He
not.
he never was.
Um, and Triple H, yeah, I'm not going to say he's never had his own faults when it came to his ego, because
Mm-hmm.
now Triple H has actually lost more WrestleMania matches than what he's won.
Yep. Yep.
But his matches were always the longest one on the card.
Yeah.
If
With
you go,
with usually the most elaborate entrance besides the Undertaker.
yes, and even against the Undertaker,
Yeah.
it was still kind of pushing it. But Triple H respects the business. Triple H loves the
Mm-hmm.
business. He wants to do what's best for business, especially now that he's in a position that's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm an executive, like, for real, which means that the decisions I make affect the business, affects
Mm-hmm.
everybody else, and everybody is going to be looking at me.
Yep.
And so now, I mean, when it is a little bit different when you get put in that high of a leadership position and you take it seriously. You just don't say,
Yeah.
"Hey, hand me that $1 million check every
Yeah.
month." I mean, it's
Exactly.
he's
Yeah.
actually taking, because he does love the business. I mean, he I'm pretty sure when he was training with Killer Kowalski, he wasn't thinking, I'm going to be one of the most powerful wrestling executives in the world one day.
Mm-mm. He just
It's,
wanted to be the best.
he would just want to be the best. And,
Yeah.
but he wasn't trying to make it all revolve around him. Whereas, and by the way, talk about straight edge,
Triple
Triple
H is straight
H,
edge.
he's straight edge.
Yeah.
He has, as far as I know, he's never drank.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And
He's never
even,
drank. He never did drugs. I mean, and he was the only one in the clique that was sober.
right.
I mean, Nash was not a huge partier. He drank some, but I don't think he ever did any drugs. But Hall, X Pac, and Sean were notorious
Oh,
partiers.
they were doing all the drugs that the other
They were
two weren't
doing,
doing.
yeah, they were doing everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Triple H is straight edge, and Triple H is not going to have all that backstage commotion either, because it's like it's not good for the locker room. It's not good for morale. It's like that's how, and like Jack Perry has been suspended indefinitely. I saw that earlier, a little bit before we started recording. Um, okay, suspension. Yeah, I get. He got into a physical altercation with another wrestler. You've got to set an example. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like he should be suspended indefinitely, especially Punk started that physical altercation. Could Jack Perry have walked away? Yeah, I wouldn't have. Just at some point, you can't just. CM Punk's a bully. He tried to bully people that he thought he could get away with doing. Because somebody made a good point on Twitter that he didn't do all this when he was in UFC. When he went to
Oh,
UFC, he was shaking hands and he was all polite and respectful and all that because he knew those guys would kick his head in. He knew they
literally.
could and they would. He thought when I got to AEW, I could push around people that I was pretty sure that I could beat. He
And
was not expecting Jack Perry to get back in his face after he shoved him, but Jack Perry came right back and Then Punk tried to put him in a chokehold.
And besides Marco's stunt, who's one of the smallest people on the
Mm-hmm.
AEW roster? Probably Jack Perry.
Jack Perry. Yeah. But I don't blame Jack Perry for standing his ground. I don't even blame him for the remark about the glass. It's like he's a heel. He was trying to get some heat.
He even said he was trying to get heat.
Yeah,
You know,
he was trying to
now
get heat. And even if it was a shot at Punk, how many times has Punk shot on everybody?
yes,
And it was okay because it was Punk doing the shooting. But somebody shoots on him, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, that's the worst thing in the world. I have no issue with Jack Perry being suspended, but I don't think he should be suspended indefinitely.
it sounds like the conversations I have with my 12-year-old son. You know, and basically, you don't like them talking about you, then you don't talk about them.
Exactly.
Yep. So
Exactly. Yep.
and CM Punk apparently he doesn't think rules like that have to apply to him.
Oh no. And I'm just waiting for whoever's podcast he shows up on to tell his side of the story because he's going to be the victim. He always plays the victim.
Now, I will say this. If all of a sudden he's sent our way, I'm not going to turn him down.
Oh, I'm not turning down. I'm like, come on. Yeah,
come on.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on.
Because, you know, we need our listener base back up again because unfortunately we had something else happen to the podcast over the past week. We lost our advertising
Mm-hmm.
because they said there was what was it? Invalid impressions, which basically means there was more downloads happening in one single place, you know, IP address, something, you know, and didn't even give a chance to appeal. So it looks like it might be permanent. So we need sponsors. But if, you know, if we were to get CM Punk on the show, you know what, that would actually, that, you know, people would definitely give us a listen. So by the way, I'm just putting that out there. If anybody is looking to sponsor us, or if you know anybody who's looking to sponsor a podcast, especially a wrestling podcast, just please let one of us know. You know, email armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com, email cubiclechatpodcast@gmail.com, email intellectualrockstarpodcast@gmail.com. So I want to make sure I got that email address correct. In case you're wondering, the Intellectual Rockstar Pocket, that is Dwaylon's podcast where he talks about all things nerdy. Here, that was actually something else we did since the last time we recorded this show. We recorded Intellectual Rockstar. And
we did
a show all about Indiana Jones. And one of the things I wanted to have on that show is the bucket, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny I got from the movie theater. The day that I took my son, he wanted to go watch Asteroid City, and like I told people, if you ever get a chance to watch Asteroid City, pass on that.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it unless you're a Wes Anderson fan. Then you'll probably love it. And we were in Target yesterday, and he saw where I was like, "Are you really wanting to watch that?" I said, "I'll get it for you." I said, "I'll sit and watch it with you again just to make sure that it's as bad as what I say it is." And he said, "No, it's streaming on Peacock." I'm like,
"Oh. Yeah, Peacock's got it. Yeah, because it keeps popping up on my TV, the ad for it, and I'm like, nope. Steve already gave me the scoop on that one. No.
Oh, I mean, with all the star power, it's a Wes Anderson movie, you know. And if you've ever seen any other Wes Anderson movies, you know he is very different. I'm not going to say that you know, if you're a Wes Anderson fan, you'll like it. If you're not a Wes Anderson fan, you probably won't like it. But I will say, make your own judgment.
Yeah, he is definitely an acquired taste.
Yes, him, David Lynch. Certain people just have their weird.
Now,
style.
I do like David Lynch. I do like him.
My daughter's really been getting into Twin Peaks. The very first time I ever turned the channel, this is when Twin Peaks was new. So this episode was like first time it was being aired, and I was I think I was at my house, at my mom's house in Hopkinsville, and flipping the channels. And this little guy dressed in red, and all of a sudden he's dancing and talking real weird. And I'm like, what in the world? That was my first impression of Twin Peaks. And so I really haven't been able to watch it. I've tried sitting out, you know, but that was my first impression. That's something that'll,
Yeah.
scar you. If you don't, and he's like dancing all weird and um, but yeah, so before we turn this to a movie review podcast, which that'll be probably my next episode of Cubicle Chat. I'm thinking about doing a review of Pump Up the Volume because I watched it yesterday for the first time in a long time, and that was one of my favorite movies. Back first time I watched it was right out of high school because it was someone who lived about a block away from me in Hopkinsville. He actually recommended it to me.
Oh, okay.
Don't want to say he was a friend. His first name was Jade. Not necessarily a friend, but he was an acquaintance. I mean, we got along. He was a skater. Um, so you might know who I'm talking about. I don't want to give last names, but
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
first name was Jay, but yeah, he recommended to me. He's like, yeah, dude, it's about this pirate radio station. I mean, it's a really good movie. And I checked it out. And I was like, yeah, it was a really good movie. I was thinking about doing a review of that just because it was my favorite movie for a long time. Now I'll say it's one of my favorites because, there's some movies you're like, man, that's good. Um, but it still holds up to me anyway. Yeah, so I'll probably be doing a review of that on the Cubicle Chat. Go check that out, Cubicle Chat Podcast. And some of the other news, those who are watching on YouTube, first of all, you're seeing me trying to get my phone to come back up because all my notes are on my phone. And you'll notice I'm wearing a Smashing Pumpkin shirt. I actually got this yesterday at Target. And it also is one of the few shirts they had that were actually in my size. But I mean, this was the Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. That was one of my, I actually really liked that when it came out back in like 1995. 94,
Right.
95, time frame. And I used to listen to it, quite a bit. I thought it was pretty good. And um and I actually posted, I took the picture, I posted on Facebook on my personal page, but I tagged the Armchair Booking page and I tagged Dwaylon in it. And I said, whenever we're recording, I try to wear something. It doesn't always happen, but I do try to wear something that's connected to wrestling. And just like your shirt right now, Nashville 316. I know what that's from. From where Dwaylon got to go to SummerSlam.
Yep.
He did last year. But,
yep. I wasn't gonna buy a shirt because they were like $35.
Yeah.
At the show, and Hope was like, "No, you need to buy a shirt. This is like this." She's like, "This is big for you. You need
it's
to
like
buy
going
a
to a
shirt."
concert.
Yeah. And so I bought the shirt. I was able to just do it on my phone and then pick it up there, so I didn't have to wait for it to be shipped. So
to stand in line watching everybody buy the shirt in your size that you want. You're like, and you get up there, sorry, we just ran out of size.
Yeah, it's like no.
Yeah. By the way, people, if you go to a concert, if you're going to get your shirts like that, do it at the beginning. Don't wait until the end.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a
will not
fat
get
guy like
your
me.
size.
You will not get your size. They will run out. But the reason I started wearing this one, and I posted on Facebook, I said, if you are a wrestling fan beyond just WWE, AEW, you will know the connection with the Smashing Pumpkins and wrestling. And a couple people actually did post the thing, but it was Jake Petway, your friend who became my friend as well. He's a luthier. He makes his own guitars, and he's also at least a PhD candidate. Has he finished yet?
I don't think he's done yet, but yeah, he's definitely working on it.
He posted, NWA for life, and then he also posted, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, which is the name of the album. He said that's all the drama that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, said, you know what? I said, I'm going to quote you on the show. And I did. Thank you, Jake. That was a good one. But
speaking of the NWA,
yep.
Congratulations to EC3 on winning the World Heavyweight title.
Yes, because Tyrus
had to retire.
He's retired. I know you're not a fan of him, but
no, God no. I mean, okay, when he was Brodus Clay in WWE, especially when he like turned heel and quit doing the Funkasaurus thing, I was like, okay, they've got something here. This big monster at that time could move, all that stuff. Tyrus in the NWA was awful. He could not work.
What I heard, I mean, I haven't really seen any of his.
There's a clip where he climbed to the top rope to do a splash onto his opponent, fell off the top rope, missed his opponent by a mile, His match with EC3, he goes to run to bounce off the ropes. He runs over to the rope, barely touches the rope, and then runs away like he actually bounced off the ropes to do a splash on EC3. He's awful. And why Billy Corbin put the world title on him, I don't understand.
Maybe because of just the name recognition at first, but then
Probably.
realized, ooh, maybe this is a bad idea.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I mean, he rode with it for a while, but I think it was time to get the belt off of him. It's good to see EC3 win another world title because
and by
WWE just wasted him.
and by the way, Dwaylon just told the connection with Smashing Pumpkins and wrestling. Billy Corgan, who is
Mm-hmm.
the lead singer, guitar player and basically he's the leader of the Smashing Pumpkins, owns the NWA.
Yep.
He
Yep.
bought it how many years ago?
I
Within the
can't
last 10
remember
years.
now.
We'll
Yeah.
just say it like that. Within the last 10 years, he bought the NWA.
Yep.
And he was a wrestling fan and he respects it. And he's trying to do right and he's trying to actually build the NWA back up, which means that he's hanging around Oak Grove, Kentucky sometimes.
Yep.
That's the town between Hopkinsville and Clarksville. For those who are wondering what's so significant about Oak Grove, they have NWA matches in Oak Grove.
Yep. One of our guests that we've had a couple of times on the show, Matt Mims,
And
wrestles in
Devin. Don't forget
and
Devin.
Yep.
Yep.
Wrestling the
Graves.
NWA. Yep.
Both of those are great guys too. If you ever get a chance to check out their stuff, you can find it on YouTube. Both they've been on the show. We need to get them back on the show. We need to get them both back on the show.
Yeah.
Just kind of a follow up, see how they've been doing. But and also other shows I want to give a shout out to the DWO, the Dad World Order. Right now they are in Iowa.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they went to a show out there, and I was actually kind of surprised because Mike, he actually said that this company is the best indie company, hands down. And I was actually a little surprised with that, considering we're here in the NWF territory. Why is he not showing up? But yeah, they went out there and I'll have to find the company later on. If he's on your you know what, I can find him. If he's on your Facebook, I mean you'll see where he said that. And where's it at? Yeah, because I mean he and the rest of the DWO, I mean, yeah, they drove out to Iowa. Now that's the thing about the DWO. I mean, they do a lot of traveling for events. They were actually up at, you were at SummerSlam last year in Nashville. They were at SummerSlam in Detroit. And yeah, I'll tell you right now, everybody was marking out seeing Santos Escobar wearing a DW. It said DWO. And everybody was asking them, is he wearing your shirt? And, of course, it turns out the D stood for Detroit, just like.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
like,
the pay-per-view on
yes,
the pay-per-view on Sunday. I'm sorry, the premium live event on Saturday, not Sunday anymore. But, he was wearing a shirt that said PWO, Pittsburgh.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And I cannot find where maybe it's on the DW page, but yeah, they went out to the show in Iowa and they've gone up to Detroit for that. They've traveled, it's him and the other guys from DWO. I mean, they do that traveling. And so, and you could tell in their podcast they put, I mean, they're pretty much YouTube only and they do live shows. And when they had Noah Gabriel on there a couple weeks ago, I kind of let Noah how I felt about him sneezing on my shirt. And I said some not so nice things about him. Which, by the way, Noah and I do not hate each other. For anybody who thinks we actually hate each other, no. But he sneezed on my shirt. I just had to let him. I had to
let him know.
I had to let him know. Not acceptable. And he said, "I just grabbed a black T-shirt." I'm like,
Sure you did.
Sure you did, Noah. Yep. But of course, the one we can never ever forget, the wrestling podfather himself, Ted the Hillbilly Hill.
Yep.
I actually told him I want to have him on Cubicle Chat here soon,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you're probably going to have him on Intellectual Rockstar.
Mm-hmm.
Similar
Yep.
reasons actually, but I want to hit on him because Ted is like the expert when it comes to the heels.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a heel work? Why, what they have to do to be a good heel? Why you need them? I want to discuss like bad guys in like all of pop culture, like movies, TV
Mm-hmm.
shows, whatever. But I know you want to focus more on like Batman villains or some other kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
comic book type
Like
villain.
comic book villains,
Yeah.
yeah.
So a little more focused. Mine is, more of a general broad overview. But go check out Ted the Hillbilly Hill, The Hill Truth. Any audio platform. He is not on social media. So good luck with that, trying to get him. But I believe it's the Hill Truth at gmail.com. Or just if you listen to the podcast, or go check out the Hill Truth, any audio platform, and he's on YouTube. He's only doing
Mm-hmm.
shorts right now, but you'll see why he is number one in Antarctica, number one on MySpace, award winning, critically acclaimed, and
Yep.
honestly, everybody loves Ted.
Yeah. Ted's great.
And I want to give another shout out to the Mixtape Podcast. I was on their show a few weeks ago. We talked all about 80s metal because, believe it or not, we, Dwaylon and I, we do talk about other things besides just
Yeah.
wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about a lot of things amongst ourselves that we would never ever broadcast.
Yeah.
I just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Because, when you've been friends with somebody, when we've known each other since the later part of the 80s, it was the fall of 1989 when we met in the halls at Christian County High School.
Yeah. We were juniors in high school.
Yep. Juniors in high school. And I'd only lived in Hopkinsville for just barely over a year at that point. Somehow I didn't meet you our sophomore year. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think we must have had different lunches. That's the only thing I can think.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, give another shout out for the guys at True Crime Cast. Jamie and John. They've been guests on our show, and they're still doing a bang up job. I've also written a couple of shows, and they had one of my ideas on their Patreon edition. And they're friends with Chris Jericho. They've been on his show. And they are on Stoveleg Media. The guy who manages Stoveleg Media is a guy named Nate Metz. Nate Metz was on the Cubicle Chat, I guess about a month ago or so now, maybe a little over, a month and a half, something like that. Well, I actually, got a story for Nate. He has on his podcast that he actually does once a week called Mysteries of the Ohio Valley. He says everything from Pittsburgh to Paducah and beyond. And so I say Paducah, and Dwaylon gets excited because that's where he lives now.
Yep.
So, but Jake, I'm not Jake. I'm sitting there looking at the name Jake, and that's what I'm thinking of Jake Petway. Nate Metz, he told me, he said, "Hey, by the way, I have these other buddies, who were starting their own podcast here soon, but it's a combination of wrestling, music, kind of more specifically like metal, and like nerdy stuff like anime." And I'm like, oh my God, we must meet these guys. We need to have some kind of collab probably, but they had not started the podcast just yet when he was telling me about it, but they did a couple weeks later. And now I've actually had the chance to listen to them. They call it the Nerdcast Empire. And yeah, it is a mixture. I mean, one episode is about wrestling. The next episode is about, music, like metal. And the next one's about anime. And so I gave them a shout out on Twitter. They gave me and Dwaylon a shout out on their show. And then they also posted it on Twitter. We can call it Twitter. We're supposed to be calling it Twix. What is wrong with
Twix?
Twix. Maybe Twix can sponsor us.
Maybe.
But yeah, go check out Nerdcast Empire because they really good show, and it's three guys and a girl, and I want to say two of the guys are brothers and the girl is their sister. And the main guy who the one who actually gave us the shout out on Twix, he also kind of works alongside Nate. Nate is also the voice at Thomas More University and NKU, Northern Kentucky University, for some of their
Oh, okay.
sports.
Okay.
So, and if you hear their voices, you'll realize why they are broadcasting that, because they sound like they have a broadcaster's voice. It just sounds really clear and everything else. And I don't realize I have an accent until somebody tells me I have an accent.
Same. Or until I hear my own voice on a recording, and then it's
Yeah,
like,
and then I'm like, all right,
there it is.
y'all gotta stop that. I don't want to hear that. So, and one more shout out we got to give, and this is just absolutely amazing. Okay, Kyle, former co-host of the show, he had texted me a couple weeks ago and said, "Hey, I have this competition coming up, and I might be going for a world record." I'm like, "Do what?" And when Kyle's talking about a competition, he's talking about like a weightlifting competition, or if you want to say powerlifting, and because Kyle can put up like some just, like all the weights. I mean,
Yeah.
he
He can put
just,
up some crazy numbers.
yeah. And so he texted me Saturday. Once again, I believe I was still at my birthday thing. And he said it's the world record in bench press for his age and weight class.
Okay.
He benched 507.6 pounds.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's wow.
I mean, if you say, all right, we're going to cut it, by a third or by a fourth and let you do it like in segments like that, maybe then, to try to total it all together, even then I'd be like, I don't know if I can do that,
Yeah,
but I
exactly.
mean,
Yeah.
Now if you ever see a picture of Kyle, yeah,
He's
pretty jacked.
jacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll have to look back through the text to see if he gave me like his total numbers, but that's the one. I mean, that he told me about, that he had got it. And I was like, holy crap. So I just want to give a big shout out and congratulations to Kyle for that, because that is amazing. Like I said, he's pushing up all the weight. And
Yeah.
and because, and if you know the amount of time and effort he puts into it, very
Oh
well
yeah.
earned. I mean, he takes it very seriously. Because when I was lifting some, I know when I was in England, and I told him I was, starting to kind of lift some, just trying to get in better shape. He was giving me advice then that I never ever thought about, because he was telling me, he said, okay, whenever you're doing your reps, when you are pushing up, like on the bench press, for example, he said, when you're pushing up, breathe in, bring it down, breathe out. And he said, because when you're doing that, it's bringing in more oxygen that's going to be going to your muscles as you're doing the reps. So it actually helps to
Oh,
build
okay.
more. I'm like, there's so much science to this.
Yeah.
I never would have thought about it. But a couple more things about the podcast before we must bid ourselves adieu. Besides needing sponsors, right now, this is, if you were to look on between the Cubicle Chat and Armchair Booking, there, as of this right here, makes 300 recordings for me that'll be out there on the platforms, and that's not including a couple that got scrapped because,
right.
oh my god, the audio quality was just
Yeah.
horrible. And until that's when I was able to finally move into my office, and now it's been good. There was another one when Kyle and I, when Kyle was still the co-host, where we were live at the time, and somebody called in, and all of a sudden they started getting vulgar and racist. They think they're funny, and then they had their friend do it too, and so we had to totally scrap that one. Thankfully, it was within like the first 5 minutes, so we didn't lose a lot.
Yeah.
And then, so for me, I was like, wow, 60 episodes of the Cubicle Chat. This is 240 for Armchair Booking, which means that you yourself have done a little about 200 as well.
Oh wow.
Think about that. I mean, it's kind of, you kind of lose track after a while. And and then you include all the other ones that I've been a guest on, or we've been a guest on, together, and it's like, oh, wow. So, and that's the, all the ones with the exception of Nerdcast Empire, because I mean they are very, very new. I think they
Yeah.
just put out their 6th episode, so they are very, very new, already doing a good job. And um, to me, it's very we're very blessed to have been, connected to these shows. Also, TNC Sports
Hmm.
Talk. Can't forget Justin.
Yep.
For TNC Sports Talk. I mean, he's always giving us shout outs and trying to get people to come check us out. And but sometimes we don't understand. We get tired,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes life can kind of get in the way because not getting details. I mean, Dwaylon had a family emergency come up this week. He
Hmm.
had to get taken care of. Texted me and say, "Hey, if anybody knows us, they know family comes first. Period.
Hmm.
End of the day, this is just a podcast." But we also know people are supporting us.
Yeah.
So you might see some slight changes in the way we do things. Um, we're still not sure how we want to handle this. Of course, especially because now we are getting we're trying to get sponsors because this podcast is no longer monetized,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like you're on YouTube. All of a sudden, you do something they don't like, or something
Yeah.
happens they don't like, and it may not even be your fault, and all of a sudden you're
Yep.
no longer monetized.
Yeah.
It happens. I mean, we didn't do this. We're not trying to. I mean, it is nice. It was nice to get paid for it. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah.
especially around December, because December they really pay you.
Hmm.
I was like, whoo, my dude. It's like, yeah, we got Christmas. Christmas is paid for now.
Yeah.
But but I mean, no worries. I mean, we've all also said, I mean, just a bump in the road. In fact, I think
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
sent you that, forwarded you the email that they sent to me. I mean, I think you
Hmm.
even said that. You know what? It's just a bump in the road.
Yep.
Um, and so we are intending on keeping going because we actually did talk about, okay, you know what? Let's kind of step back, take a break. And then I remembered somebody said, "Hey, I'm taking your advertisement and I'm going to be putting on a whole lot of shows." And I'm like, okay, so if
Yeah.
we're being advertised,
Hmm.
we definitely need to keep going. But you know what? That's not a bad thing. I mean, because
No.
we do enjoy doing this.
Hmm.
We enjoy having guests on. We enjoy when we do normal shows like this. Um, but if you see slight changes, don't be alarmed. That's all we want to say. Um, so, but thank you everyone so much for listening to us who have been listening to us.
Absolutely. Yep.
So especially,
Appreciate the support.
oh yeah, go check out our other podcasts as well. And, but in all the podcasters, what we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fun, but man, it'll keep you busy,
Yeah.
so, um, because like everything that, especially when you're running multiple podcasts, like Dwayne and I are doing, and you're thinking, oh, that'd be a good topic. Oh, that'd be a good topic. Oh, how about that one?
Hmm.
Oh man. Okay. I'm like, I got to text Dwayne about this. Oh, never mind. He just texted me first,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, um, and by the way, have you checked out this other podcast? Oh, hey, so and
Hmm.
so wants us on their podcast, and so we got that too. And so, um, but it has definitely been fun, and we're going to keep going as long as what we can. Doesn't matter that we're both half a century old.
Yeah.
And and according to the Cincinnati Reds, when you're buying tickets and getting like special offers, apparently I'm a senior citizen now.
Hey, I've been waiting on this. I want all the discounts.
Yeah,
Gimme, gimme, gimme.
gimme, and just like Grandpa Simpson,
Yeah.
everybody wants something for nothing. He walks into the Social Security, I'm on, gimme.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, because my son and I were actually going to go watch the Reds Wednesday. Just bought those
Okay.
that tickets today because I'm like, yeah, because my wife is getting ready to have surgery on her foot the end of next week,
Hmm.
which may take me out of pocket for I don't know,
Yeah.
because I have to
You got to take
focus,
care of her. Yeah.
take care of her because first 24 to 48 hours, I mean, she cannot be left alone, is what we've been told.
Hmm.
And then for the next 2 weeks after that, she can't work. Um,
Right.
and then for like the next 6 to 8 weeks after, she can't do anything on her foot, and it's her right
Hmm.
foot, which means she can't drive,
Right.
which means I'm going to have to take her to work. And
Hmm.
by the way, I'm still looking for jobs. Before anybody asks, no, I have not found a job yet. And by the way, really, before anybody asks, once I find something, I will let you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I've actually had people ask me that. You found a job yet? Have I told you I found a job yet?
Exactly. Have
You
I
know,
announced it yet?
have I announced it yet? No. Which, by the way, I am still looking. I have had some interviews. Um, and so far now, I'm on my third message that said, hey, the hiring for that position has been put on hold for now.
Uh,
Yeah. So number three though, they actually said it will open
Excuse
up
me.
back in January. Um, but by all means, please do not, let this keep you from looking for other jobs. We want you to go look, because we don't
Hmm.
want you to just kind of rely on this.
Right.
So, um, but yeah, I had interviews. Actually, had a recruiter. He had me change my resume twice, add some stuff to it, and then I haven't heard from him since. But then again, today is also Labor Day, so he probably was not at work.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I'm also going to be probably fighting with the septic people because I didn't tell you about that. I had to get my septic drained, and
Mm.
and I was like, well, why what happened with the pump that you guys put in a year and a half ago?
Hmm.
And they're looking. The guy looked. He's like, where's your pump? I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. You put it in
Oh.
there. He pulls on the electrical cords. The pump had fallen off the pipe that it was attached to. It was all the way down at the bottom of the tank. And I have three separate tanks back
Uh-huh.
there. And he pulled it up and he's like, okay, I'm gonna check to see if this is under warranty. He said because it came off the pipe. Um, and of course, you have the float in the tank,
Hmm.
and once it hits a certain level, the pump will kick on
Right.
and suck the
And
stuff
pump.
out.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the pump started going, but it was at the bottom, in the middle
Hmm.
of all the stuff. So it was just pumping the stuff right back into itself.
Oh,
So the pump eventually burned out because it
burned
was
out.
just,
Yeah. It was
and
moving
so,
constantly. Yeah.
yeah. And so thankfully it's under warranty. They're going to replace the pump for free. That's $1,500 I don't have to pay. Uh, they are going to replace the line and the electrical boxes in there because the electrical box also was not waterproofed. And so
Oh.
that's only going to be like $150. However, that was all last Monday. They said we'll come back out tomorrow, Wednesday at the latest. Wednesday versus my birthday. It is now a week later. They have not been back, and I have called them and called them and called them.
Steve's not going to be nice the
I'm not
next
going
time
to
he
be
has to
nice. I
call.
mean, yeah, and I've already talked to a lawyer here in town,
Mm.
somebody who I've known since he was in high school, and he's
Hmm.
married to somebody who's like a distant, like family of family. But I've also known her since she was about 8 years old.
Mm.
So
Okay.
he and I are almost like
Hmm.
family, and so I'm going to make an appointment with him if they don't come out tomorrow. But I'm going to let them know I'm not going to be nice when I give you a review.
Hmm.
And of course
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this after they
After you fix it. Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
fix this up, and I'm gonna say yeah because I'm pretty sure when I call and they say on Sunday, oh, we will be out there by about 4 o'clock, 4:30, because they're not here. I'm calling, they're not answering the phone, and it's going to voicemail, and their voicemail box is full.
Hmm.
So that's actually something else I have going on here is you know people who are not reliable. And then when you actually look up a lot of reviews, a lot of the reviews, negative reviews, all say the same thing. Very similar stories to what
Mm.
I have. So, but anyway, hopefully I didn't bore anybody too much with that. Um, and, it's just been a very, very eventful like past week and a half since the last time that we recorded. Um, and honestly, when we got the news that Bray Wyatt passed away that day, I honestly don't know if we could have recorded that night, even if we didn't have
um,
any distractions, because that one hit kind of hard.
it did. It hit very hard.
Yep. So, um, like I say, God bless Bray Wyatt's family, the Rotunda family, his kids with JoJo, his kids with his first wife. I don't remember
Hmm.
her name.
I
Um,
can't think of it either.
his brother, Taylor Rotunda, also known as Bo Dallas, um, and the Wyndham family, because,
Hmm.
you know, um, because he was Blackjack Mulligan, also known as Jack Wyndham. He was his grandson and Barry and Kendall Wyndham's nephew. And
Hmm.
so everybody knows they're going through a lot. And of course, the Funk family, wrestling just got hit kind of hard. And then, with all the other, there's been a lot more negative news, unfortunately, coming out of the wrestling world
Yeah.
lately. So just remember, just take everything just one day at a time. I always try to look at positive things no matter what. And sometimes you just got to remember
Yep.
who the person was, because Bray Wyatt, I mean, Wyndham Rotunda, you look at all the feedback from people talking
Oh
about him.
yeah.
He just
Yeah.
seemed like just this awesome, awesome person,
Yep.
so, and hopefully, everybody can kind of live their life like that, taking care of people and helping out their fellow man, and, if they're their peers, and just being just a great person.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
yep. But until we can meet again, my friends, I'll just say good day and God bless.
God bless.